So now we're standing in front of a different car, folks. This is my 1980 MGB, and I'm standing here with Jacki Bradham. Now, the event we have on August 10th in the morning is really a combination of 3 different sorts of car clubs and other people, but there's also activity after the car show that Jacki can tell you about at this time. How about it, Jacki?
Alrighty, so in addition to the 3 car shows, we have the sociability drive and poker run. And if you haven't played poker run, basically the idea is that you get a scorecard and you go to different locations throughout St. Croix County and you can get your cards stamped, and you bring those cards to a prize party at 3:30, or from 3 to 3:30 out in Roberts. And when you turn in your cards, you get a playing card for each stamp you get. So there are actually 9 different stops. There's 3 in Hudson, 2 in Roberts, 1 in Hammond, 2 in Baldwin, and 2 in Woodville. And in addition to being poker run stops, a lot of these stops also have history displays. So for example, the Roberts Library has this wonderful history display, and they do a good job every year. We always get great comments about that. And just across the street over there, the library, just a short distance from here, from the Hudson Arch, is the Hudson Library's history room, is where you can go get your poker run card stamped and see their history display. And they have some stuff on the Yellowstone Trail there, so it's kind of interesting history stop to see.
Indeed it is. And are you going to be wearing that dress and that?
Yeah, this is my Yellowstone Trail outfit. If you can't see me in this, I don't know, you must be colorblind.
So tell us a little bit about the Yellowstone Trail and these rocks that we see, painted rocks.
So the Yellowstone Trail got started back in, I believe it was 1912, so I think we're in the 112th year of the Yellowstone Trail, and it ran until about the Depression era, the 1930s. And believe it or not, it was private people that started building roads, good roads, and it started out in, was it North Dakota, South Dakota? In the Dakotas, and their goal was to get a good road for vehicles all the way out to Yellowstone Trail. So that's why it's called the Yellowstone Trail Road, and it was the first, if you ever heard of Route 66, it's very similar to that. So it went from Puget Sound to Plymouth Rock, so all the way across the northern tier of the United States, and it was one of the first transcontinental roads highways to go. And they would, in addition to, they never actually built the roads, they just advocated, the Yellowstone Trail Association, they advocated for building roads. So a lot of roads were built by private people, and this was long before the government got into the road building business, which eventually most of the roads now are built by government, built and maintained by government. But back then they were all private roads. Well,
I recall the story of our own toll bridge here, and that was built private, right?
Yeah, it was a private bridge, and it eventually was sold to the city. It was built in 1913, I believe, and it would come right down this dike road from the Minnesota and right into downtown Hudson. So when the Yellowstone Trail made its way to this area in around 1915, that's when the road, the dike road, was used as the entrance into Wisconsin from Minnesota. And it made sense. If you didn't come that way, you would have to find a bridge somewhere or take a ferry. There were still ferries operating at that time. So when the toll bridge came in, it was just a logical spot to have the Yellowstone Trail run through, because they did try and pick the best roads and the best paths to get from one place to another.
And during the heyday of the Yellowstone Trail, there were different routes through the city of Hudson, weren't there?
Yeah, the road.
I mean, did it always go by the First Baptist Church, now the Living Vine Church?
I believe the original route was straight up to 3rd Street, and then over on 3rd Street over to St. Croix, and then would take Old County Road A out of town, and that was the original route. As the years passed and the roads improved, especially out in the Roberts area, Highway 12 became the main route, so that the route changed, and it would it goes through different spots depending upon the year. And at that time it went through out on Vine Street and W in the later years. And there was actually a fair amount of business that would support the Yellowstone Trail, so they were vying to get the trail to go past their place. But Vine Street had been one of the main spots, and there were different businesses in town, like the old sports club, which is now Smiling Moose, used to be the Trail 12 Cafe, and that had the Yellowstone Trail connection. And then up on Vine Street, what used to be the old Vine Street Forest, I think it's 5th Street, 6th Street, that building used to be the Trail 12 Cafe. So they would be local businesses would want the Yellowstone Trail to run past them so that they could get business from the Yellowstone Trail. All the travelers to stop in and spend money, and
just as they will hope for it on August 10th.
Yes,
you
yes.
know, during the poker run and the sociability ride,
Yeah.
stop and enjoy some business. So if I'm understanding you right, the route of the Yellowstone Trail was the same as Highway 12 right in this vicinity?
It evolved into
So
that.
when 12 shifted, it shifted.
It evolved into that. Highway 12 wasn't Highway 12 in 1915. It wasn't until 1918 that the Wisconsin actually started naming their roads. So one of the other duties that Yellowstone Trail Association did was to create maps and guidebooks and directions on how to follow the Yellowstone Trail. And they were really interesting by today's standards. There's no Googling, no pictures. It would be like, go to so-and-so's barn and turn left, and then when you see the water tower, turn right. So some of the directions were by landmarks, which was really, and you're reading it. There's no necessarily drawn maps, so it was very interesting navigating roads back then. But there were fewer roads, so that helped.
And they spend more time changing tires, fixing flats.
Cars and
so
tires.
while Dad was doing that, Mom could be studying the map.
And one of the things that the Yellowstone Trail Association volunteers was mostly run by volunteers, and one of the things that they did was to mark the trail with yellow rocks. So you could find your way, if you didn't know where you were going, you could find the Yellowstone Trail by the yellow rocks that marked it. I think probably more so out west, but they were here too. So if you're riding around Hudson and you happen to see a big yellow boulder, why is that painted yellow? Well, it's to mark the Yellowstone Trail.
And then we've got some signage that the city maintains
we've
too.
got some signage put up.
Official signs.
Yep. So that helps too. I think some of the paths that they go through town are intended to get you to drive around town, which is not necessarily where the trail ran back then, but it's traffic-wise, it's an easier way to get around. That's why some of the signs got put where they were. For example, down by the library, that road never went through, but now obviously you can go through. I don't remember, I think in the 30s, 40s maybe is when it came all the way down to First Street. But there were different buildings along First Street than what there are now. And there's also railroads down in here.
So do you expect to be here on August 10th and wearing that and answering
I'll be
questions?
here
You'll be right here at the registration table, I suppose?
Your registration table, and I'm doing a little history talk. So if you want to learn about the Yellowstone Trail and its origins and stuff, it'll probably be right about under the arch right here.
Oh, does that have a specific time,
11
Jackie?
o'clock
At
on
11.
Saturday.
Okay, so people whose time is tight should be sure to be here at 11 if they
want to see it, yeah. And 11 is a great time to come because all the cars are in, and by then, and it's just, that's the prime time to be. So we have that sociability drive, and I encourage people to go on that because you can go out and around and just explore the Yellowstone Trail. If you go out on Highway 12, there's actually a Yellowstone Trail road up on the hill, up on Highway 12. So there's some different places you can go that were the authentic Yellowstone Trail. And when the railroad, I think that Yellowstone Trail is not a through road anymore. It used to be, but as you said, the roads have changed. And at one time, that was a logical way before Highway 12 was established to go out there in that little area. So yeah, the trail is where it's really interesting to track where some of the different routes were through in this area or throughout the whole trail.
And there's a book.
Yes.
I've got a copy of the book, The Ridges Who Live Near Eau Claire.
Yeah, John and Alice Ridge are kind of responsible for reviving the Yellowstone Trail. It's kind of like it's kind of faded away. The Yellowstone Trail faded away in the 1930s, and I think they started in the 70s or 80s to just investigate it, and they've written a couple of different books about the Yellowstone Trail, and there are other trail books about Mulbridge and some of the different people that were involved with forming the Yellowstone Trail Association back in 1912. Palmery, I think, was one of the people that was
I bet there's a copy of the book in the library.
Yes, there are. Up in the history room of the library, we've made sure we got all those history books there. There's also a video that the Ridges put together about the Yellowstone Trail. We'll have to see if we can get a link. I'll get a link to that up on our social media. So if you wanted to find more about the Yellowstone Trail, you can go to our Facebook page at St. Croix Yellowstone Trail is where you would find that on Facebook, and that's where we'd have most of the information. There's also on the Chamber's website at hudsonwi.org. I believe is the
Location for it?
Chamber, the Chamber's website. But the Hudson Chamber's website, there's also a page that has Yellowstone Trail information.
Speaking of the Chamber, we're in Lakefront Park, and I should mention that there are signs with historical information, banners, I guess is the better word, that have been placed in Lakefront Park. And there's now some audio recordings, right? Or that
they're in the process of that.
People can use a QR code and key up and learn some history through the speaker in their phone, if I understand it right. Yeah, so that's a good upgrade there.
I was going to say the other thing is the Women's Club just recently updated the plaque on the boulder in Lakefront Park, and it kind of talks just a brief history or brief information about the Native Americans that lived in this area, and acknowledging that they were here long before the white people came. So this was their home, and it just kind of gives a little acknowledgement of the.
Yeah, we dealt with that during Riverfest just a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, it's good to see that updated. I learned some things I didn't know about Native Americans that dominated this area in different eras of the past. I'd really like to say a little bit about my car.
Alrighty.
And about Britfest. So right here we will have the block in front of Dick's Bar blocked off with traffic barricades, and we will have permission to use the Gagnon parking lot right next to it. Both are adjacent to the arch. And in the last 2 years, we've had approximately 100 British cars, a few motorcycles, and weird things, but all British. The Jaguars will probably just about fill the Gagnon lot, and there'll be a lot of MGs. That's because there were a lot of MGs made, and a lot of them were sold in the United States. In fact, more were sold in the United States than were sold anywhere else. This one is a 1980 MGB. The model is B. It was preceded by the MGA. And Bs were manufactured from 1962 to 1980. And the company then went bankrupt, and 2 years later the plant near Oxford, England, was bulldozed down. The right to produce a car called an MG was sold, and you can find models of MGs. Some are made in China and in other places that are much more recent. There's even an electric MG now. It doesn't look anything like this. The B was legal at the time. You probably can't quite see it from this angle, but it's got rubber bumpers. Those were required in order to satisfy the concerns of the United States insurance industry. And I think it was a 5-mile-per-hour crash test they used to use in those days. So that's why it has the rubber bumpers. Earlier MGs, prior to 1974, have chrome bumpers. These are not the stock wheels. I've changed these. They're lighter, they're an alloy. They're a little wider than the originals would have been, but they take radial tires, and in 1980, radial tires were a little bit on the newish side, and the MGB had radial tires, steel belted radials. This is the convertible model, but there's also a GT model, which is a sedan, I suppose would be the right word for it, or a coupe, which is also a popular collector's car. There were about 500,000 of these MGBs that were made, and most of them were sold in the United States, as I mentioned earlier. It's got an oddball 3 windshield wipers. That again is driven by the needs of the United States insurance industry. So because 2 wipers would not cover as much of the glass as 3 wipers do. Of course, they added the 3rd wiper without beefing up the electric motor that drives them. So sometimes on these older cars, you find that when you get a bad rain, we tip up one of them so that it won't have as much friction and as much load on that little electric motor that drives it. I had the roll bar added, feeling it would be a little safer if the car turned over. When the Bs were first put, they have a 4-cylinder engine with a push rod, straight 4. When they were first put together, they had nearly 100 horsepower. But as the years passed and subsequent years' productions had to deal with the California pollution regulations, each time they did that, it reduced the horsepower a little bit more until when this one was sold, it knew it would have had about 62 horsepower only. I've removed some of that stuff which is legal to remove now on collector cars. It came with a factory option transmission with 4 speeds forward and an overdrive for 3rd and 4th gears. So it spins about 3,200 RPMs at 72 miles an hour. Comfortable running at that speed all day long. I got it with a little less than 20,000 miles on it 7 years ago, and it's now got about 50,000. So you can get a sense that I like to drive it. And I've taken some trips. What am I wearing today? Oh, I'm wearing today a t-shirt from a race course down in the Ozarks that I went to. I call this car Morris. Morris and I went to the Ozarks. Last year we went to Lime Rock Park, which is in northwestern Connecticut, and we went to Watkins Glen, the famous course in the Finger Lakes region on Lake Seneca in upper New York State, and we went to a convention in South Bend, Indiana. So that's how we got the miles up so much. So just to kind of recap, I don't know, is there anything more you wanted to say?
Well, first I have a question for you. When did you say they started making MGs?
I started making them in 1923, but not this model.
Yeah, so they could have been on the Yellowstone Trail.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, indeed, I think. Yeah, you'll see some.
There's about a 10-year span there that they could have been driving the Yellowstone Trail.
I dare say. Yep. I wouldn't be at all surprised that you'll see some cars on August 10th that were driven on the Yellowstone Trail.
Okay, that'd be cool. So I guess the last thing I'd like to do is just to acknowledge our sponsors. I mean,
good idea.
most community events couldn't happen without the local sponsors, and our diamond sponsor was Edward Jones, which is John's company there. So thank them for being our diamond sponsor. We appreciate their support, and not only financial support. John's here working on the committee with us. So yeah, we really appreciate Edward Jones. And then our platinum sponsors are Fleet Farm and Ted Blank Travel Agency. And then our gold sponsor is Quick Trip. And then there is also silver and bronze sponsors. You can look up on our Facebook page and or the Chamber website and find information about the rest of our sponsors and partners. We have a lot of organizations that partner together to make this happen. Most of the libraries in the county, the Roberts, Hammond, Baldwin and Woodville libraries and their historical preservation and historical societies are joining in to make this possible. So yeah, come join us on August 10th here in Lakefront Park and enjoy a ride through the county.
Show starts at 10, your talk starts at 11.
Yeah. Enjoy the sociability drive, and while you're at it, play the poker run. It's lots of fun. There will be cards and information in the Hudson Star Observer this week. There should be an insert coming out this week. And then we also have information right down here by the Hudson Arch. There'll be an information booth. So yeah, we hope to see you. It's a great car show. It's with the 3 different car shows. We get a lot of cars here and a lot of spectators. It's all free to come to participate in the car shows, and it's free to come and observe the car shows.
That's right, it's free. So thank you. This is an episode of Western Wisconsin Journal, and I'm Buck Malick, having just been here with John Steenis and Jacki Bradham.
Thank you.
Thank you.